knows when shit is wrong. Sometimes the human in us can get in the way of not knowing what to do, or we can feel disempowered, or we can feel like our one, action or one singular self isn't going to make a difference. And I think now we're realizing that is false. We all have the power to make a difference. We all have the power to use our voice, use our platform, use our privilege, use our money to make a change, which is really cool. And we're seeing that, like, this revolution happening did not come from politicians. It did not come from big corporations. It did not come from celebrities. It did not come from all of the people that we compare ourselves to, and we give our power away to them. Oh, well, if I was rich, I could do this. If I had 400,000 followers. But this revolution, I've been watching it firsthand for the past few years, listening, following people of color, women of color, following my trans, non-binary friends, advocates, leaders who have been doing this work for many, many years, many decades, and have learned from their teachers. And I'm like, wow, this revolution is happening from just people who are on social media talking and then educating and doing the work off of social media, showing up, making a ruckus, being out in the streets, signing petitions. And that's what's so cool about the time we're living in. We were waiting for a hero, perhaps, in politics, and we realized, like, that's not outside of us, that's within us. Okay, so this is a time where I want us to think about this eclipse energy that we're going through a portal for the next month. We're going to be in this eclipse energy. It's a super rare. We have 3 eclipses. Usually they just happen in a duo, in a pair. What does this mean for you and for us? It means a big change is coming, big transformation, big shifts in energy. But we have to be prepared. And I want us all to think about the activism, inspired action, social justice component. And then I want us to think about the inner component, doing our work, staying grounded, clearing our mind, being in our bodies, continuing to acknowledge what is our shadow, our projection, our trauma, and how do we invite that in, heal it, clear it, because we need both of this. This is what this revolution is going to be anchored in. It is taking it to the street. It is speaking out, signing petitions, demanding more from our governments, from our policymakers, our political leaders. But it's also going to be about clearing our own projections and doing our spiritual work, so that way we're not triggered, and we react from a place of emotional disturbance. We want to start to embody emotional mastery. And a lot of that is going to be things like listening. This is going to be a thing for being really compassionate. This is energy that also is going to help us with our patience, because baby dolls, baby boys, baby girls, baby unicorns, we are in this for the long haul. I was checking out the astrology, and 2021, we still got a lot going on, okay? So we're pacing ourselves. So spiritual activism is rooted in inspired action, social justice initiatives, self-education, listening, and then fueled also by your spiritual growth, connecting into source, connecting into something higher than you, leaning on your ancestors, working on clearing your projections, shadow, working on your mindset, keeping your heart open and tender and vulnerable. Oof, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. So let's talk a little bit about the eclipses, because I'm going to, like I said, do a 15-20 minute astrology report on YouTube after this. That's just going to be me reading off of a list uninterrupted. I like to keep these lives more of a conversation between us all, and we're going to also pull cards. But I want us to think about this eclipse energy. You probably are sick of me saying this since November, because every time I come on here, I'm like, super rare, mega potent astrological occurrence happening. But it's true, okay? I didn't come on last week because, like I said, for the past 2 years, I've been just trying to learn, listen, shut the fuck up when it comes to learning from educators, the women of color I follow, people of color, my Black femmes, my trans LGBTQ. I emphasize trans because the people I've studied under, my trans and non-binary educators, have taught me so much about the intersectionality of everything that affects us right now. And so last week I was quiet because I participated in the initiative Amplify Melanated Voices, which we all need to continue to do. So I didn't come on to talk about the eclipse too much, but we did host a lovely workshop, Healing Circle, on Friday, and I'm going to talk about the eclipses now. Also, in my story highlights, there are some amazing Black astrologers that I would invite everyone to follow also, because I'm going to tune in just from astrology to help guide us, and I want to use it as a map. But also, we need to listen, like I said, and amplify melanated voices, because Black astrologers right now are going to lead us to this revolution through their lived experience. My teacher, Samuel Reynolds, is an amazing Black man who speaks truth to power on the daily. He has demanded the astrology community be more inclusive and be more welcoming and diversify the representation in that field. And I look to him. He's amazing. And through him and through his network, I have, again, like I said, met some really amazing, intelligent, intuitive, clued in, I would say, to the practical realm and the magical realm, people who study astrology. So look at my highlights for that, and I will continue to share them. But I do want to inform us all, eclipse is here, eclipse season, we're feeling it, it's here. So I want us all to think about, when eclipses come, they are coming to shake up, move out, like a deep cleansing. Has anybody ever gotten a colonic? Let's talk about it. Has anybody experienced someone shooting hydrotherapy water up your tuchus, up your anus, to clean out your internal organs and your intestines? That's what an eclipse is like. And let me backtrack for a second why I say that. So eclipses happen on like this polarity on this, it's like a snake. Yes. And so there's an amazing astrologer, let me pull up his name, Cornelius Agrippa. He was like a back in the day kind of guy who founded a lot of the principles of like magical and occult astrology. And he talked about in Vedic astrology, eclipses are known to be like this, the head of the snake and the tail of the snake. And he said it's like the head of a dragon and the tail of a dragon. So eclipses is like dragon energy. So first of all, we're living in a dragon right now. And the head of the eclipse, and that was what we would call the north node right now. Everyone talks about eclipses, but I notice not everyone talks about the nodal axis they're on, which is kind of the most important part. So the Gemini is the head. The Gemini is what we're consuming, what we're stepping into. The dragon head is a very mythical, charged, spiritual symbol of like what we're opening up to. And then Sagittarius is the anus right now. And Sagittarius is what we're releasing, okay? But it's like this eclipse energy is coming up the anus. I did not prepare to talk about it this way. And I'm laughing at my downloads that my spirit guides are giving me that are super detailed right now. So that blast of energy is cleansing. So what happens when we cleanse, we had talked about this analogy a few times, but anyone who's gone through either a colonic or a cleanse or even a facial, you all know that feeling of like it gets worse before it gets better. If you got a facial, your skin breaks out because it's like the die off. If you're cleansing, Erica talked about it last week, there are moments when you're doing a cleanse when you feel like I'm going to die. My eyesight is blurry. I am weak. The toxins are coming out. I just want to give up. And then this is my Sag anuses right now, is like there's the release. So we want to look at what's getting blasted up the Sagittarius tuchus right now. Now, first of all, if you've ever seen an animal, that's also the dragon tail. The tail protects the butthole and can clench up that butthole when we experience resistance to change. So right now, not only are we having the cleansing happening from that part of the body, we're also watching some people tighten up their sphincter and they're becoming really scared of change because it's vulnerable. Um, but this cleansing is what needs to happen. And then in that release, like, let's be honest, it's good to release. You're doing that cleanse and then you let it all out after that colonic. That is good. It's cleansing. So we also look to Sagittarius. We look at what's the stuff that, for, to speak about it in spiritual terms, what is the shit that we're releasing around the concepts of Sagittarius, belief systems, false truths, institutions, organizations, academia. Sagittarius rules the concept of the foreigner, that someone is outside of us and someone is different than us. These are principles we're looking at that are being flushed out right now. Like for real, right? And then the good things that's cleansing and making room for in that Sagittarius South Node is going to be about, I mean, you guys heard me say it on Friday, everyone who attended the circle, truth. What is true to you? What is your truth, okay? The truth that you feel in your body, not your parents' truth, not society's truth, not your political party's truth, not the people you follow on Instagram, their truth. This is a time where we are in like master's school. We are in PhD level, like training for understanding our truth and what we stay true to and how we stay true to that. Because let's be honest, like everyone around us is trying to influence us in some way. And this is a time for intuition over influence. That is very Sagittarius. Releasing that, we are releasing the concept that anyone is outside of ourselves. This is where we stepped into Gemini energy of like Gemini energy says everyone is a friend, everyone's a cousin, everyone's a sibling, everyone is a mirror to ourselves. So we're releasing that in this eclipse. But Sagittarius is a fiery sign. So, 2 weeks ago, I talked about last week being really fiery and agitated and a frustrated energy and a lot of we have Sun is square Mars, the god of war, for like a record amount of time in this Gemini season. And I was like, what's that gonna bring? We're bringing up some upheaval, okay? So, yeah, like there's gonna be, in the Gemini Sag, the next eclipse is gonna be like the summer solstice. So that's June 21st. Then, like I said, mostly eclipses happen in twos. That's it. But this year, eclipses are happening in threes. It's super rare. I've never seen that. We've never lived through that in our lifetime. So there's another eclipse, July 5th. So what this shows me is that the universe is on a turbocharged cleanse, turbocharged colonic right now to really flesh things out. So we can expect a lot of change, a lot of transformation. And I want us to be, speaking of truth, eclipses reveal that which has been concealed and they illuminate things that we didn't even expect to be illuminated. And so Arden says, I saw a Forbes article that COVID was possibly lab created. Yes, I did not see that article, but I want us all to sit in this eclipse space. I've been saying this since the beginning of quarantine, that this is the Great Awakening, and we're about to have bombs dropped on our like cozy comfort American existence. There are people in the world who are running things that we do not even see. We do not know their names. And this quarantine, there's been some conversations, more of, I would say, a conscious awakening to that. And yes, Arden, I mean, day 0 of quarantine, my guys, I had to download a dream that was true, and I started going on a deep internet hole, using DuckDuckGo, which is like an encrypted web server search engine. And yeah, this didn't come from a bat in a market, okay? It was lab created. I believe it was lab created and it got out accidentally, before people wanted to have it get out, and it just spread in a really insanely potent, fast way. But like right now, we are in the dying off Pluto Saturn conjunction that happened this year. Happens every 40 years to bring in a rebirth. The Pluto Saturn conjunction in Capricorn we're in, the last time it happened, 1518, when Martin Luther took down the Catholic Church. When it happened before that, was like late 13th century, early 14th century, with basically the reform of the English monarch wanting to take over and begin to travel and lead with like the Renaissance and the Black Plague. I don't have my notes in front of me, but the energy that we're in right now, the micro astrology, is like the beginning of World War One. The rise of Hitler, the stock market's falling in the 30s, 9/11, the Chinese Cultural Revolution, the Vietnam War. So we see like what's happening, that's just even every 40 years. And then the things that we have not, we're in a moment. This is why it's so cool. Like, we are not here by accident. Anyone who's saying 2020 should be canceled is missing the goddamn point. For some reason, your soul chose to incarnate in 2020, the year that we are going through a great awakening that probably hasn't happened on this kind of level of what's starting in, like I said, shout out Martin Luther, like 1518 was the last, like, think about that we went from, if you think about what that meant for the Catholic Church, Martin Luther banging that stuff on that door, you know, I'm trying to flash back to all my high school social studies classes. He banged those theses on the door. How many were there? Like 12? Probably. But what that moment said is that he said, I demand us all to wake up to the truth that we do not need an intermediary, an intercessory to talk to God. We do not need to speak through a priest to talk to God. Again, this is in our history books, so it seems so numbed out to us by now, but at the time, that was insane, okay? And people were like, what? You think we can just talk to God and pray without paying a priest to talk on our behalf? This is what we are doing right now. We are waking up. We are waking up to the fact that we do not need, like I said, to give our power away to politicians, to corporations. We have the power. Like I said in the beginning of this talk, this revolution did not start in fucking Washington, D.C. They're catching up and they're so painfully far behind, it's cringeworthy to watch. This revolution is just from each and every one of us waking up to our immense personal power. And trust me, the powers that be that I talked about in the beginning of this, and yes, everyone who knows me knows that I am not even a conspiracy theory, but I am a conspiracy advocate. They are shaking in their goddamn boots because people are waking up. We are talking and connecting. There's so much happening right now for the Black Lives Matter movement, but please believe me, it goes so much deeper than that. It's so much deeper than that. It's about the racism and oppression this country was built on, and the colonialism and the stripping away of the rights of our Black community, our indigenous peoples. But it goes so much bigger than that because it's all founded in divisiveness. Keep us separate. Keep us hating each other. Keep me thinking I'm better than you because I have white skin. Keep me thinking I'm less than you because I'm a woman, what's between my legs. And all this separation and ickiness, and it keeps us like fighting each other. And, you know, I think this weekend we saw some things happening on Instagram for like oppression Olympics, who has it worse, and people started saying it's not about that, it's about us all coming together right now and speaking truth to power, speaking up, putting our dollars where it counts, and showing people like we're also not going to vote blindly. I don't want to offend anyone, but like the Democratic Party doesn't have it figured out. Obviously, neither does the Republican Party. That goes without saying. But like just because I am a liberal, progressive minded white woman, I don't want the Democratic Party thinking they can be lazy. I want to know, what are they doing? Like they talk a lot, but the walk has not been there either. And this is uncomfortable because I think there's a part of us that wants to think that certain institutions know what they're doing because it helps us relax and it helps us feel like there's a comfort there. But like we all have to wake up, because if we all sit in that sleep mode, we're just gonna fall back into these old cycles, okay? We need to speak up and live in discomfort. So, this eclipse, also Gemini, North Node, that dragon head. We talked about what we're pooping out, what we're shitting out. We're shitting out the the parts of justice that feel shitty, the part of truth that feels shitty. I saw a funny tweet this weekend, and it was like some college, and it was like, we speak out against institutional racism. And then someone tweeted back, and they were like, you're Harvard, your like universities are literally the epitome of institutionalized racism. So we need to like, that's Sagittarius, that's that pooping out we're doing. It's like the institutions, the belief systems that got us here. And we need to look at all of them. And we just can't take a corporation's like random Black Lives Matter tweet at face value. I've seen tweets going around like, don't show me your Black Lives Matter tweet. Show me your board. Show me who's in the C-level positions, who's in the management. What do the people look like? And I'm just like, oh, when I was in college, I wanted to register as independent, and a Democratic person, my college campus, told me that that was bad because we're going to dilute the Democrats' power. And at the time, I was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, we don't want to dilute the Democratic vote. But then I thought about it, like, if I had registered independent, that was 15 years ago, and I had told 100 of my friends every year, and they told their friends, like, what would it be diluted by now, or would we be having a fucking better candidate who wasn't part of, like, I'm sorry, Joe Biden, like, the fact that we had men, women of color, we had an Asian man, we had a gay ex-military man from the Midwest, and then we ended up with Joe Biden. I'm like, y'all, something is happening. So this is my rant, everyone, and I understand that it might not be for everyone, but this is work that I've been deeply ingrained and entrenched in and studying and listening to people on for the past few years. And this just feels like nothing is separate, nothing is coincidental. And it takes all of us like speaking out and like letting this poopy out, letting this Sagittarius, like shadow Sagittarius energy out. And then in Gemini, what's the Gemini light that we're stepping into with this dragon head? Let's talk about that so we can leave on a high note. Gemini, curiosity, staying super open. Like, we need to be open and curious, okay? I always say my Gemini mantra is, when someone tells you something, you ask yourself, says who? Who says? Who is telling me this message? When someone tells you to do something, the black box thing last week is a great example, really thinking like, who says to do this? Where is this coming from? What is it benefiting? Anything someone says to you. Oh, it's not, don't talk about politics in this. I had some people DMing me, some like all lives matter bullshit. I don't even want to get into it right now. But and they were saying things, and they were trying to like do some like light washing, guilty, but I've been in this world for too long. I'm like, please come at me with that. I am like booked. I have the response. I'm like, I just shut that down immediately. But I'm like, that is like a who says who. Who says that, you can't, who says that talking about certain things, is inappropriate to someone, or who says that, it's like I'm not speaking clearly because I'm all fired up thinking about those messages, but it's like, who says, who is telling you these things, and who also is wanting to keep us not sacred rage is good. Sacred rage channels into passion, into movement, into change, but sitting in just anger, in that lower form of anger, that keeps us very separate. So when things come out and people are trying to rile us up, or things come up in the news to keep us separated, who's saying that? Who's controlling that? Even independent news sources online are usually controlled by like 4 or 5 corporations, okay? I'm looking at you, Vice News. Like, Vice News is progressive in some ways, but it's owned by Disney. So I just want us to think about this Gemini curiosity. And like Sagittarius is the truth seeker. So Gemini's curiosity, and Gemini almost is inquisitive to an almost annoying, like a why, like a little kid. Why is the sky blue? Why is it called blue? Why, who said? I want you to be like that. That's what I want you to think when you read something, when you listen to something. I want you to have that Gemini curiosity fueled by that tail of that dragon, which is the Sagittarius truth seeking, okay? And the other ways we can do it, Gemini, self-study, educate. Gemini is the scholar, the teacher learner on the more like smaller level, like a school or learning from someone. Sagittarius is learning, but at a more like worldly kind of university student of the world energy. So this is the time to self-educate. You know, what are the books you're reading? What are the groups? Oh great, someone on YouTube made a really cool connection to the Chinese zodiac and the dragon, exactly. And we want to think about, first of all, I think we all, after this week, see that there are amazing Black educators, Black femme educators. There are amazing, and then taking it to the next level, Black trans educators to learn from and to sit with and just pay them and take their courses. They have been doing this work for a lot longer than probably a lot of the influencers who are just reposting their stuff. So this is a time to self-educate, and we also want to read, and we want to read books that are nonfiction, educational, instructional books, and we also want to read memoirs penned by people that don't look like us, stories that are told by people who don't look like us. We want to diversify our Instagram feed, our Twitter feed, our Netflix queue, our whatever, wherever we buy books from. We want to like diversify. This is part of the Gemini curiosity and the learning, okay? And then Gemini, we cannot forget, it's talking, it's curiosity, it's studying, but it's listening. We're going to be talking about in my Cosmic Boss class tonight the power of active listening and structured dialogue. Sometimes it's in our human nature when we feel uncomfortable or we want to show that we're part of change. We want to talk, talk, talk. And that's why I am so grateful to the women who started the Amplify Melanated Voices initiative last week. Black and Embodied is the one Instagram, and the other one is escaping my mind right now because I'm hyped and hyper, but it's all on my feed, obviously, my last post. But I love this concept of like learning is listening. And sometimes our reaction is to want to talk because we want to either validate something for ourselves or prove something or just add to the noise of the conversation. But it's like that old expression, like too many cooks in the kitchen. Like we just need to listen, especially if this is not your learned and lived experience. So listening, not listening and waiting to talk, but listening, okay? In our Gemini season magazine, I actually wrote this before this all happened, but I wrote like a ritual for practicing embodied active listening, what you do in your body, what you're meditating on, how you sit and really listen to someone and let their experience washed over. Yeah, educating ourselves, yes. Yes, Ryder. There's a privilege between buying books, accessing Netflix. Of course, that's a great point. And for people who don't have access to that information, and I am definitely, when I speak on that, thank you for pointing out, I'm usually speaking to white women like myself at a certain level of privilege. But I do want to acknowledge that there's all different people. There are people who are like, we talked about the protesting. Not everyone can protest because they're not able-bodied or they have to work or support their family. So we had shared the mapping out of roles in the social ecosystem diagram by Adipa Nair last week. And just like that, there's different levels of privilege of access. But I do want to say that I'm talking to people who have DM'd me and said, where do I start? Where do I start educating myself? And I go on their feed and they're, have pictures of them traveling, doing whatever, buying things, eating. I'm like, well, first of all, if you probably know how to Google and stalk your ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend and her cousins to filth, then you can probably Google and find some resources to self-educate yourself. And then also like, if you can afford like to buy any books or anything on Netflix, like just diversify what you're doing. But of course, these are also economic times that are challenging. So, but that's what amazing is happening right now. Even in our link in bio, we shared a resource where everything is free. Everything. There's a lot of people who have done work out there for free. And a lot of them, if you're following their work, Venmoing them, PayPaling, Cash App them, like do it. Like if you can't though, that's why they make the resources free, because they don't want to have anybody saying, I can't afford this. And that's where I have a small level, very tiny level of compassion for our older generations who we are teaching this to now, because I just don't know if they had access to this education like we do in this moment in time. So my thing is less blame gaming, less name shaming, less cancel culture of them, more calling them into the conversation and saying, hey, we live in 2020. There's literally resources for this everywhere now. If you acknowledge that and then you don't want to change, that is a different conversation, a different tone. But there's a lot of access right now, and there's a lot of ways that we can do this. Okay, so yeah, I love everyone's comments, and I think it is great to acknowledge. And this is again where we want to stay in our own lane a little bit too. Like, yes, we want to call in people to the conversation. We want to invite in our friends and family. But this like policing of each other, especially again to my fellow white women, we love policing each other. We love like finger pointing and finger wagging. And we have to honor everyone's experience and everyone's mental health and everyone's access. But there's no excuse for us not beginning this journey. And I want to speak also just to the end of this, the Gemini Sag eclipse. Baby dolls, we are in this for the long ass haul. This is not a freaking sprint, it's a marathon. This is not an event, it's not something to check off your list. This is a lifelong process. The unlearning process, the awakening, the listening, the learning. So I want to invite everyone to think about, I've been mapping out, taking my own work to the next level. I mapped out 4 courses that I want to take, and I'm going to take them, out over the next few months, but spreading them out, and also spreading money, because a lot of these educators are going to get an influx of cash right now. A lot of these organizations, a lot of these nonprofits are going to get an influx of cash, and then it's human nature for this to die off. But I don't want us to die. I want to keep our foot on the pedal. I've seen that foot on the gas. I saw that all over Instagram this week. But really thinking about like making a goddamn plan and writing things out, writing it. I wrote in my planner this morning from my dear friend Darcy, got me this amazing astrological planner. It has my ephemeris, and I mapped out every time the moon is in Aquarius, I'm doing one thing. Every time the moon is in Taurus, I am donating a certain amount of money. And I just mapped out my month by the moon and my social justice work I can do when the moon is in Libra, doing certain things for self-study, posting about certain things, sharing. Again, not everyone this week is going to be eager to be like, I'm on the train, I'm doing the work, I'm talking. But like I said, it's going to be a lot of listening, learning, and creating sustainable action steps you can do over the next week, over the next month, over the next 6 months, over the next year, over the next 2 years, and making a plan, just like you budget your money and time for everything else, or you plan things out. I always have my like manifestation work I do in my moon journal. And for the last few years, I've been adding that to certain self-education I've been doing, and now I want to take that and add my moon cycle work to my personal healing manifestation list, my social awareness, change, advocacy that I've been doing, and then even adding more inspired action steps and resources that I can donate to or donate my time to. So I can get more into that. I can do a post around it if you want. But this is the Gemini eclipse, the Gemini Sag eclipse we're in. Like I said, the next one is the solar eclipse on the summer solstice. The next one is the 5th of July. And the nodes, we're really going through this is like I said in the beginning, Gemini is like air, the mind, it's our communities. And then Sagittarius speaks to like our spiritual, our belief systems. So we're going through a revolution and a call for change on both. Like I said, what we're learning, what we're consuming, what we're talking about, what we're doing. And then Sagittarius, we're also reevaluating our belief systems and stepping into like another level of being activated and called into the place of like the spiritual warrior archetype. So Oh, there's so many other things. If you want more of the astrology, like I said, I'm going to be filming just on YouTube on Mondays, a 15 or 20 minute just astrology for the weeks. I didn't even get into Mars and Pisces right now. I didn't even get into the fact that we're going into Mercury retrograde next week and we're in the shadow. But the eclipse has enough for us to think about for today. So let me know if you have any questions. As always, DM me. Feel free to share any resources, any organizations you'd like me to highlight, any people doing cool things in the space, any ways that you're diversifying your feed, your information sources. And I will continue. Sometimes I keep more of my conspiracy things to myself. Probably also just I was like, I don't want to get flagged on this account, or maybe I'm scared. I don't know. I talk about it a lot in my private circles, but I will be bringing that more here because I think that we're getting ready. I think that the first 2 levels of the awakening have begun. Thank you, quarantine, for giving us the slowdown we needed to have these shifts and conversations and changes. And I'm gonna pull a card in honor of the Gemini Sag sassiness. I'm gonna be pulling a card for us for the week. And it's from Caroline Meese's Archetype deck. And what I like about her work is she pulls no punches. I love archetype work. I just enrolled in a course for the fall, not for now, on Jungian archetypes. For those of you who know my Cosmic Boss work, I have the 6 archetypes of the Cosmic Boss we work under. All the astrology work that I love is really about tuning into the archetypes that we can embody. So this deck is great, and because you know what she does the shadow and the light of the archetype. So it's first of all honoring that every energy has a spectrum. There is no energy in the world that doesn't have the shadow and the light. So I want us to acknowledge that within us and in the world. And part of this consciousness we're entering right now is to hold space for duality, to hold space for the shadow and the light. And we need both of it, okay? It's just about being aware of it and being aware of how we're using that energy. All right, yeah, Ryder. Okay, I'm gonna keep speaking on it. I mean, everyone who knows me privately knows that's all I talk about, but the time is ready. And I've given you all little pepper doses throughout this quarantine, but it's truth-telling time. My actual nodes, my personal lunar nodes are my north node is in Gemini, my south node is in Sagittarius. So everything going on right now is directly on my personal natal nodes. So I'm also like, wow, the time is here. The time is here to poop out some old shit and speak on the new shit. So let's see what the card for us for this. Ooh, okay. So like I said, Caroline Meese pulls no punches. Some of these cards are intense and archetypes are a little sassy. And like I said, every archetype has the shadow and the light. So for this week, I'm going to be using this archetype deck a bunch through Gemini season because, like I said, I love archetype work. And to me, Gemini season is really about understanding the study of who we are and who we are in relationship and that mirror. And a lot of that, we can learn a lot about that space through archetype work. So our card for the week, Storyteller. Okay. So pretty spot on for the Gemini Sag eclipse and the medicine we're in. And Mercury is in Cancer right now, and Mercury in Cancer speaks to the stories we tell from growing up and the stories that we have told ourselves since we were little. And the Mercury in Cancer right now, I feel like it's like a softening, a soak you do, an Epsom salt soaks your muscles, or going in the ocean softens you, or anyone who's just soaked anything, it gets softer. And I feel like Mercury in Cancer right now, everything else is really fiery and really intense in astrology, and there's a lot of hard aspects coming later this week. I'll talk about my YouTube video. But this softening feels really important. Like Mercury in Cancer is letting us soften the muscles so we can have these conversations and we can bend versus breaking under them. And so to kind of speak to that, the Storyteller card says the light attribute of Storyteller is the ability to experience and express life through stories and symbols. And the shadow attribute is making up tales that harm others. And the storyteller is the minstrel, the narrator, and through their stories relays wisdom and foolishness, mistakes and successes, on a plane that's often heightened beyond ordinary awareness. And it helps because it includes a metaphoric level of teaching. So it's the teaching that we do through storytelling, which is so important right now. Like I just said, diversifying the shows that you're watching and the stories you're reading. We learn a lot through education of like nonfiction, but I think we all know we learn a lot through storytelling. Okay, I mean, all of our fairy tales and Disney movies we watched growing up were telling us a certain story about the human experience. And that's part of in the Cosmic Boss this month. We're going to be deconstructing and decolonizing a lot of the storytelling. But also, I want us to think about the stories that we tell and like listening to people's stories. We can learn a lot. That's why I love movies and education and TV shows that are based on storytelling. I went to like a medicine of storytelling retreat a few years ago, and we covered this a lot in my shamanic program. But yeah, that stories around the campfire, stories like it's one thing for people to be like, oh yeah, I think it's hard to be a Black person or a Latinx person or this. Oh, okay, I kind of get it. But then you get immersed in someone's story, reading their memoir, watching about them, and you like the stories transport us into that place where we have that commonality, that common consciousness, and it goes so much deeper and it becomes so much more heartbreaking, and you feel so much more empathetic. And Mars is in Pisces right now, which speaks to all of that. Storytellers also reflect a desire to bring order into what seems like a chaotic and random universe. So I love this. The storytellers, yeah, storytelling also helps frame that things that are happening aren't random and they're not just chaos for chaos sake. They're chaos as part of the story, the beginning of the story, the climax, the ending, and we're all on these mythical journeys. So I love that too as a reminder. And then the shadow of the storyteller I want us to think about is making up tales that harm others. So how are we using our words? How are we exaggerating, or how are we being silent to other people's stories? Shadow storyteller manifests when we can't resist making up a story to conceal something we don't want to be truthful about, or misusing a skill to our own advantage when sharing information. You don't have to be a professional writer, but a storyteller's voice and methods must be essential in your way of communicating and perceiving the world. So I'll put that in the stories. And then, why is that so blurry? So yeah, storytelling teaches empathy. Absolutely, Arden. So that's your morning show energy report for Monday, Moon Day. I missed everyone. Also, like, just DM me, say hi, let me know how this resonates. If anybody has anything they want to talk about, especially if you're in marginalized communities, like you all know, I know we have Pride this month and it's becoming like Black Pride, and we're all being like, yes, like this is a month to celebrate our, well, as one of my cosmic bosses, Chris with the K, would say, our ancestors and transcestors, and especially like the Black femme revolutionaries who have gotten us here. If anybody has something they want to come on and talk about and share, my platform is your platform. But everything I just talked about, if you're just tuning in, you're gonna hear me talking about everything from shitting out society's colonic energy of what we needed to let go of, to some conspiracy advocacy work, and to really the power of these Gemini Sagittarius eclipse that we're in. There's a lot of power right now, so we want to be mindful of how we're using it, and lots of time for self-honoring and self-care, because I know all of you, so many of you, are deep warriors, deep advocates, and you're out there in the streets. So I want to also invite you just to make time for that spiritual self-care and being in your body, being in nature, taking naps. It's equally important, okay? So yes, gay pride, gay rage, let's do it. Stonewall was a riot, and we're back here right now, and I love it. I love it. Love is a riot. That's what unconditional love is. Okay, everyone. So I'm about to run out of time. I'll see you. Oh, hi, Gabriella. I miss you. All right, Gabriella, the time thing's going to run out, but you can watch this replay for the next 24 hours or on the YouTubes. So I'm going to go film the like 20-minute astrology energy report for the week on YouTube. You can catch that there. And I just hope it helps you. I hope it serves you. I hope it helps you understand and direct your energy for your highest good and the highest good of the collective. Okay. So everyone, I'll see you Wednesday. Happy Moon Day. Bye.